Okay.
There.
Okay. So let me start off with an intro, and then we'll dive right into it. And I'll just introduce it as, let's talk about what's going on in the States.
Yeah.
All right. Hey there, everyone. This is Dr. Joan with Becoming Canada. I am joined by Dr. Kendra Flores. Kendra, it's Flores-Carter, right?
Yes, it is.
Let me start over. I was like, Carter Flores. Okay. Hey there, everyone. This is Dr. Joan with Becoming Canada. I am joining you with Dr. Kendra Flores. Oh gosh, that is ridiculous. That I just
Flores-Carter. It's a tongue twister.
Yes. Hi there, everyone. This is Dr. Joan. I am coming at you out of Canada, and I'm joined today by Dr. Kendra Flores-Carter. She is in California, and today we're doing a special edition. We're talking about grief and the atrocities that have been happening in the States. We have both been touched by this in really unique ways, and it's like the awakening has begun. So we are wanting to talk today about the challenges that we know a lot of you are experiencing at this time. And so we want to start off with just, how did it feel, Kendra, to actually to watch that video? How did it feel?
Oh gosh, it was heartbreaking. The first initial report that I got, or the first thing that I saw, was that it was related to him being under the influence. And my first thought was like, I don't care if he's under the influence of anything. He's a human being first. And so it didn't matter to me that he was on anything or if he wasn't on anything. All that mattered to me was I saw a man laying on the ground who was handcuffed with 3 officers kneeling on him, one in particular on his neck. Him yelling out, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And what really got me was when he called out to his mom, Mama, right? That got me. And I just broke down and I started crying.
Yeah.
And all of America, every woman who have ever birthed or ever have the love and had a child, you just know, you just felt that, and I put my son, my only son, in that place.
Yeah.
I was just like, I would want to die.
Right.
If that was to ever happen to my child.
It was so challenging for me. Like, I couldn't watch the direct angle on, I certainly saw from the other angle that he had his hand in his pocket and his leg, and with other people saying like, hey, there's something wrong here, stop. But it almost seemed like he was in a trance, Kendra. It seemed like he was in a trance. And I too had this kind of, you go through the range of emotions, did that really just happen? Did that really just happen? And then after that, experiencing the same thing, it's just like, no, really? People can do that to one another. And I mean, it's not like we haven't known this as Black people for years. Like, that this isn't just a George issue, this is a Black people issue. And that, quite frankly, it almost seems like our lives aren't as valuable as everyone else. And it's just like, when it hits you that right in front of your face, it's like shocking. And then there's all of the stuff that happens after that.
It is, Dr. Joan. And it was just like, I think for the first time, people realize just how hard it is to be Black and have any type of interaction with the police department. We know that there are good officers out there. I have worked many years as a social worker. I know I have worked and interacted with police officers, and they are nice and kind ones, but they're also the ones that are very unkind, the racist ones, right? The ones that are very mean to us.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
So, you and I are counselors, and we know the grieving process, but there's a lot of people who might not even know that they're grieving right now, Kendra. There's a lot of people who are going through the range of emotions, but seriously are at odds because they don't know that they're actually grieving, right? So I think one of the things I'd like us to do is to actually lay out what the grieving process looks like so that those who are watching can know what part of the process they are at, whether or not they've moved through it, or they're still moving through it, or if literally they're still at the beginning of it. So can you walk us through that a little bit?
Oh, yes, for sure. So there is 5 stages of grief, right? We know that there is acceptance, there is depression, there is bargaining, there is anger, there is denial, right? We know that all those stages of grief exist. I think initially maybe there was denial, like, is this really happening, right? Is this really happening to George Floyd? Is it really happening to him, right? But then we actually saw that, yeah, it was happening, and it was live happening. And I think anger came after that when we realized that this really happened. This really happened to this man. A white police officer really did kill him. And it's as if he didn't care that he was taking a life away. I don't know who can watch that video and say that it was George Floyd's fault that he was killed. I think anyone that has empathy, anybody that has empathy would recognize that what happened to him was unjust, that what happened to him was criminal, right? And so people are angry, and I think we're seeing anger right now. We've been seeing anger because it's been years of this happening. We recently had Arbery, right? Ahmaud Arbery, that was literally followed and ran down and killed in the street.
Like an animal.
Yeah, this was just recent.
Yeah.
And then in between those 2 murders, we have a woman in Central Park saying, I am going to call 911 and say that you're threatening my life. Say, African American man is threatening my life, as if she know using that gives her power,
right,
for a Black man's life, right? It determines his future, really.
Yes.
In that moment, it's like in the snap of a moment, you could call and ruin
somebody's life.
Exactly. Someone of color. You can ruin their life just like that. And it just brings me back to a place where I just feel like it's unfair, the things that we have dealt with for many years. And now we have to really and truly talk about that. That's not the future that I want for my 3 children. I do not want them to grow up in an environment where they feel inferior, where they feel judged, where their character is not the first thing that people look at.
Yes.
They look at their skin color and immediately, oh, danger, 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 right? It's just not something that I feel is fair to our people. And it's finally to the point where the stage of grief for Black people right now is anger.
Yeah. Yeah, we're stuck there, and then I think until there is, some recognition, at least in the leadership, that, hey, this is a really big problem, right? And I think the challenge is as, you know, as we even looked at this case, it's like, okay, so you can see it in plain sight. You can see there were other people trying to talk him out, but he wouldn't even come out. You can see that this grievous act has happened, but then he's not even arrested. There's not even a recognition that something has gone very wrong. He is protected by police officers. He gets to escape to Florida. Then they finally, through pressure, arrest him, and then it was third-degree murder, so it was unintentional, and then now it's pushed up to second-degree murder. And so what you see is that the response of authority figures, those who actually, like, it's one thing for a man to do something wrong, but when you see that those who are supposed to uphold the law then don't, it puts you in a place where you do recognize full blown, we call this the awakening, right? So we awaken to the fact that, okay, even when those who have the power and the authority are supposed to be just, and they're supposed to be righteous, and they're supposed to be merciful, when it comes to a Black man, there is none of that. And so it pushes us into this place where we're asking why? And it pushes us into that place where the only response can be anger as we grieve. Because we know this isn't just about George Floyd, right? So the grief is kind of like at a totally different level now. It's at that level of, you know, the African, whether you're on the continent of Africa or you're part of the diaspora, is our lives so invaluable that no one can recognize an injustice, no one can uphold the standards, no one can actually resonate with the laws that are supposed to be written on our hearts, not to murder, right? Not to kill, not to steal, not to destroy, right? Not to envy, to basically accept and love and, you know, just let people be. None of that seemed to exist for us. So, you know, like, how do we cope with all of this? That's my question. How do we cope? How do we even, once we recognize this is where we sit, and if we want to like move out of it, what's the next step, Kendra?
I mean, if we're looking at the grief stages, the next step really usually after anger is bargaining.
Right.
Bargaining and really and truly trying to figure out ways that we can begin to heal the system.
Yes.
Break down the barriers.
Right.
Been there for many years. The systemic oppression of Black people. We need to really tackle those policies and really partnering with organizations and seeing how the Black voice can contribute to you breaking down those barriers in your institutions. Because that's really and truly the only way change is going to come. I don't think that white CEOs, white managers, white supervisors can break down those barriers without the voices of Black people. They need our voices to do it because we're the ones who have had the experiences.
Right.
And many might try, but they probably will fail because they don't understand the oppression and what it does to people. They don't understand really truly racism and what it does to us.
Right.
You know? And I think you can do it, but you're going to need to hear the voices of the people that it impacts, and that's us. And if you want to do it, you need to reach out to us, you need to partner with us, you need to learn with us how we can change it together. It's not a one-man fix, it's a together unified fix, right?
So I think that's what we're all recognizing, is that this is going to be a layered approach. It's not going to be, it's certainly, the protesting is good. It shows solidarity. There are people that are out there that are quite frankly just destroying things. But I think there are some people that are out there that genuinely are taking the knee and taking the knee for a totally different purpose. The purpose for taking the knee is to say, hey, we surrender. We recognize that something is very wrong here, and we actually are interested in making that change. So, you know, but I think on different levels, we're going to have to start doing, different things. Now, some have argued that to try and change the system from within, we might not be as effective. I'll tell you why. This one of my clients that came in this week, well, we do our counseling sessions by Zoom, but you know, one of my clients this week, she was a correctional officer, and they wear masks, and so she wanted to just position herself where she could speak out about some of the issues that we're facing. And so one of the things that she did was she began to speak out, and she got a lot of pushback. She got a lot of pushback from those people who were actually offended that she would try and say, you know, like there are issues within our correctional institutions. There are racial issues that lead to targeting. There are racial, you know, all of these elements are here. Can we stand up? And some of her friends were actually interested, but then very quickly they started targeting her. They reported her, you know. So when we're dealing with all of these things, it's so challenging, because even when you try to do something as an individual from within an institution, that is kind of like, you know, the challenge that we're facing right now. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is hard, Dr. Joan, but that's the continuation of the oppression that they want to hold us under, right? Yeah. And at some point, I think it's hard to say it, but at some point your voice have to be strong enough to say, what are you willing to sacrifice for the movement? And I think,
good question.
If you really, really have to sacrifice becoming a target at your job, I think that it's difficult to say I'm going to be that person, but there are going to be a few people that's going to say, hey, you know what, if I lose my job, I'm going to speak up regardless, because it's not okay. And I think opportunities are going to be lost for many Black voices who speak up, but that's the sacrifice that we all probably have to be willing to make. And unfortunately, if we think about all of the people who made those sacrifices in the past, they lost a lot. They lost their lives. Dr. King, Malcolm X, they lost their lives for the movement, right? For racism, for us to get the ability to really be on equal footage. They lost their lives, and I think it's gonna take that energy to really and truly make the changes that's necessary.
So we're both people of faith, and you know, we want to acknowledge that. And you know, I've been praying differently lately. I've been praying, you know, I've been praying for a change to come. I've been praying for a change in leadership, you know, a leadership that will actually acknowledge, you know, that humanity has different shades and colors.
Yes.
That, you know, that there is value to every single person's life, that that there's a need for a shift towards justice, towards, you know, righteousness and goodness, right? And so I've been praying, you know, I've really detested the way that Donald Trump has treated this situation. On one occasion, he called in the army. He actually, you know, had them like in front of the White House because they went there, like responding in certain ways, like, and he tweeted certain things that it was just like, how do you do that as a leader? How do you actually make it okay, right? On the one hand, when people were out because of COVID-19 and they had their guns wherever they had them, you're tweeting, oh, support the protesters, right? As long as it's white guys, you'll support them. But now we have a valid reason for the protest. And you basically say, well, if they start looting, we start shooting. and you think that that means nothing. You think you are okay in saying something like that. So I've been praying for his, either a change of heart or for his complete removal, right? And for there to be a replacement of those authority figures, those politicians, senators, mayors, and just civil servants that really have a heart for justice. Even if you don't want to claim to love God, at least recognize everybody's humanity and the need to like let go of whatever power it is you think you possess, because that is just a false sense of well-being. Just because you murder other people doesn't make you powerful. And the colonizers, the white race, has been doing this for far too long, and it's time for it to end. In fact, we know it's going to end. We know it's going to end, but it's too bad, like, we have to force it to happen, right? And so, the movement is coming, the shifting is coming. We know the sands are already moving. So any thoughts that you want to share as you hear what I have to say there?
Yeah, I definitely think that the shift is coming for sure. And we definitely need to recognize that people who are privileged and who've been privileged for so long,
Yeah,
are afraid, because that means, I think, I'm not sure what his name, I was watching CNN and there was a guy on CNN, I don't remember what his name was, but he said, white people are afraid of us pulling a you on them. Like, and I struggled to understand what that meant, but he was like, you don't want us to pull a you on you.
they don't want us to mirror, right?
Yeah, and so,
effect, right?
and I think, yeah, that's exactly what he was saying.
Is real, right? It's a real effect, and I think we also need to be concerned about that, right? Because what we see are mirror neurons. Empathy is felt, whether it's good or bad that you're feeling. But what we're doing is, like, as we step into the heads of the people who victimize us, we literally believe the messages, right? And we take on all the beliefs that they have, whether it's, I need to overpower you, whether I need to be violent to you in order to feel secure in who I am. And when I'm going to start praying about that, because I think where we need to really be careful as a people is because things are shifting and we are going to be moving. We are going to be stepping into positions, and we are going to be in those places where we now have power and authority. And what we don't want to do is the you. What we don't want to do is turn and make this happen anywhere in history again.
Yes, and I think that's the message. The message should be unity. The message should be love.
Yes.
The message should be God-centered, Christ-centered. And I feel like there is a lot of us that want that, and if we work towards that, I could see us working together and really and truly having an amazing world that's peaceful, right? Like us working together, our children getting along. There's no longer this I against you, you against me situation. There's no longer you taking my spot, or, it's just, we all come together, we all get along, and we all work for the betterment of our society, for the betterment of everything. The world around us is a lot better when we work together, and that's just been proven everywhere.
Absolutely. And you know what, that gives me a nice feeling in my gut when I hear you describe it like that, because I think it's a total possibility. I think the other thing, that we can count as our strength is that we have had such a forgiving spirit. I think one of the things we're constantly criticized for, is our willingness to forgive. Like, over and over and over again, they've brutalized us. I shouldn't say they, because it's not a generic, but, we've seen it where some have brutalized our people. And what we always hear is, I forgive you. I feel badly that you're now going to suffer. I'm a forgiveness therapist, but I don't necessarily stand in that space where I'm like, you have to be pouring out everything to that person. I think we forgive for ourselves. And the reason why we forgive for ourselves is so that we also can be forgiven, but also that we can stop that mirror neuron effect, right? Where we can basically say, okay, I'm going to learn through the process of forgiving. I'm going to see that, you know, because we go to a lot of places where we're not wanted, right? And it's almost like we blind ourselves. Oh, okay, we're all living equally. We're all in North America. Everything's good. But we don't recognize the universities with very low acceptance rates, and we still want to go there, right? We don't recognize the workplaces with very low rates of employment of Black people, yet we still want to go there. So we go into all of these territories and we're blind to the fact that people hate us, right? And so it's time for us to wake up and recognize where we're safe and where we're not safe. But the other thing, the forgiveness process is going to teach us. It's going to teach us to have compassion, because as we have compassion for the other, we also can, you know, have compassion for ourselves, because we're all broken, we're all fallen, we all have to heal. And this is the kind of thing that we're playing out over and over and over again.
I definitely think that it's the sadness within us, the sadness, the many years of not being welcome in certain doors, or it's the sadness in us as a people of wanting to be accepted and wanting to be able to show that we are worthy.
Yes.
And we need to know we are worthy, and that our worthiness is not dependent on some institution accepting us, on an employer hiring us.
Yes.
And this is where we need to build really and truly a world where we also have our own riches. We also have our own businesses. We also are uplifting our own people.
Yes.
So that we're able to be just as competitive or as equal in footing with everything else, right? Because I think for many years, we've just been wanting and longing for this, and it's probably going to take time and years for those barriers to really come down. And that's going to lead me into the next phase of grief, which is going to be the depression phase, where it's like, you know, we're fighting this battle, we're trying to get there.
Yes.
It's still not happening the way we want to happen.
Yes.
Many of us, oftentimes, it puts us in a space of just sadness, of a space of, man, why am I trying so hard?
Right.
You give up and you give in. And I think we cannot do that anymore.
Yes.
We have to break it down, and we have to keep going and not be complicit in accepting the treatment that we're getting. We can no longer be accepting or complicitly accept the systemic oppression, the institutionalized racism. We gotta say no more.
Yeah.
Too many of us have gotten in the door, and we have pretty much sided with the oppressor, because we don't uplift our people, we don't look back, and that's not okay. So what if we got hired into this institution and we're the only Black person at the table? We need to see more Black people, and we need to fight to see more people like us at the table. Don't get comfortable with being the only Black person at the table.
Right.
Too many of us have done that, and it's not okay. We need to fight to bring more people like us to that table to eat.
Yes. Yes.
Because the more of us that are at that table, the more opportunities we can create to bring much more, you know, and we can go out there and create our own businesses too for our people.
Yes, there's a gentleman who does some wonderful work, Dr. Boyce Watkins. I was introduced to him by our friend Rashida, and so I follow him, you know, every once in a while. And he basically says, you know, this idea of integration, we've tried it, right? But we know when we were successful. when there was segregation, and I'm not suggesting that we need to go back to segregation, but I'm suggesting that there needs to be kind of like an economy for us that works beside the economy that exists right now, right? Where we begin to pool our resources. He said, with the 40 million Black people in the USA, there's $1.3 trillion. So imagine if, you know, as a group, we pooled that $1.3 trillion or $1.4 trillion and then basically started educating ourselves, right? So we have to talk about the textbooks. We have to talk about the fact that textbooks don't present an image of us other than being enslaved. That says a lot. The media presents an image of us, whether it's dangerous or whether it's stupid or whether we're just, you know, the ball players or whatever the case may be. There is this onslaught of lies that are constantly being driven into our lives that we need to rid ourselves of. So he suggests we need to actually own our own education for our children. He suggests that we need to have businesses that are Black owned, that we begin to now, you know, celebrate and, you know, patronize. Then he talks about, you know, just having an economy and, you know, space for us, you know, to begin to like have some spaces where we can congregate together, and it's not these impoverished areas, but these areas that are actually sustainable, you know, actually reflect who we are. So because we've been ghettoized, and it's been this systematic attack on almost every level on us, and it's time for that to end. So, you know, we know that there were periods in time when there was like the Black Wall Street, and I think there were several of them across the states, but because they needed to in the post-slave slavery era when it all ended, they actually formed these communities that began to function well. And the challenge was we weren't left alone, right? Had we been left alone, we would have continued to progress and done really well. But the competition had to come in. In one case, they had to burn down, you know, Black Wall Street. In other cases, they had to find a way to infiltrate and attack us. The final way that, you know, this was won was basically they said, come on over, integrate with us. And at first it looked like a really great thing, but at the end of the day, it hasn't worked. If anything, it's actually caused us to, like, you know, spiral downwards. It hasn't given us that hope. It hasn't given us that sense of community. It has segregated and like totally destroyed our inner core. We don't support one another. We believe white people are our gods. And I say that with, you know, a bit tongue in cheek, but we look at white people as though they're the icing, you know, the ice cream that, you know, like we must take in. So there's so much that has to be resolved amongst us. And I think the way that we do this is by having like an economy, a community that sits alongside with, but operates like almost independently. I mean, this is an idea that's out there. You know, you don't have to agree. You just have to, like, you know, consider different options, but we need to start acting, and we need to start acting on our own behalf.
Yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from. I think there's definitely a significant way that we can improve, and that's really and truly, like you said, creating social enterprises for ourselves. You know, creating our own resources, making sure that our people have access to the same things, you know, our counterparts have access to, but it's owned by us, right? I mean, I dream of the day when we have our own hospital system, you know, where, you know, people are studying or disease or metabolic system, you know, all of those things is so important. For me, just peeking my head into becoming a researcher, I realized just how important it is for us to really look at us.
Yes.
A lot of the medication we take are based off of white studies, right? It's not based off of the studies that's related to African American or Black people. And, you know, the side effects are different for our body. So it's a lot of different things we need to break into. So there's opportunities there. I still do think though that there is a barrier when it comes to having the financial wealth to do it. And that takes us coming together as a people and putting our resources together
Yes.
to get that piece done.
Yes.
Because you cannot do it alone, right? We weren't born into having wealth.
Right.
And the difference between us, we have to create our own wealth. Whereas for many of our counterparts, they were born into wealth, right? A business was passed down to them with millions and millions. So they just kept building on top of all of those resources that they already had. So we definitely need to create ways that we can start to do that. And I think it is possible for us to do it, but we really and truly have to stop having the mentality that I'm not going to help my brother or sister succeed. And I think that's the oppression, that slave mentality that was thrown on us, right? Where we don't help each other because we have to completely pull each other down because I want to be the one sitting in that room. I don't want you to be sitting there. I want to be the only one. And we really need to get out of that mentality for us to move forward. So my message really is, man, we got to change the way that we think. We got to work together, come together as a people, and
Yes.
start creating our own social enterprises. And really and truly, we can still do that working together. We can still do that working together. But I think we just have to make sure that we also have our own, you know, that's important.
Yes.
Finally, it's just acceptance, you know.
Right. Yes. And, you know, like I had to move through, I do a very particular type of forgiveness. And I had to move through, you know, forgiving not only Derek Chauvin, that's a police officer with his knee on George's neck, but the other 3 police officers who I call onlookers, then the people around them that I call onlookers. Then in addition to that, it's the systemic oppression. So white people in general. But then I also had to forgive us because in a lot of ways, I believe we don't actually protect ourselves. We don't come together, pool our resources. We wait for other people to protect us and build systems. And at the end of the day, those systems don't treat us well. So I had to come to that place where I looked at everyone. I even had to go to the level of humanity, right? And as Christians, we have a perspective where we know and we understand that these dark shadows, these spirits of darkness, these principalities, you know, Satan himself is against us, right? We are light. We know we're the original people. You know, there was a time when the entire planet was like one landmass and it has separated, right? And so there are shifts and changes that have happened in you know, the various spaces and places across the planet because of the shifting of those land masses. But what we know is that all over the planet, there we were. And somehow, you know, the shift and changes in skin tone based on where we are,
Yes.
It hasn't registered. And Satan has been able to use so many different categorizations to divide us, to have us work against one another, conquer, you know, and it's time for that to end. So I even had to go to this humanitarian level of, you know, just forgiving humanity for the corruption, right? The corruption of the spirit, and allowing this process of self-defeat to continue. And I think once I got there, to kind of move through so many different levels, but once I got there, I finally found my peace again. Whereas I had lost my peace for probably a good week, you know? And I thought to myself, well, how many people are out there that still don't have their peace because they can't move through a process like I've just talked about? So, you know, we want to welcome anyone who wants to reach out to us to, you know, if you want to learn this process, I have a couple of videos on my YouTube site that really is called 490. This is based on Christ-like forgiveness. 490, Christ said forgive 70 times 7 times. So 70 times 7 is 490. I also have a book called 490, Forgive and Live Fearlessly, which is a great resource as well. And so if you're interested, go and view some of those videos that are on my YouTube channel. They're quick, they're easy. They give you the basics in the forgiveness process. It'll help you to just kind of emotionally process some of the things that we all need to process at this time. So I'm going to close us off. And so Kendra, can you tell us where we can reach you? And I know you're on Instagram and a few other social media platforms. So just tell everybody
Yeah.
where they can reach you and how they can, and what kind of services they can access from you.
Yeah, you guys, I am definitely open to doing presentation, guest speaking, lectures. I teach a counseling diversity class, and I love this, one of my favorite classes to teach, where I really truly focus on helping students understand how they can help people to recognize all of the different diversity issues related to counseling. I can be reached at Dr. Kendra Flores-Carter on Instagram. I have my nonprofit, the Janet Don't Cry Foundation, that's on Facebook. And I also do consulting through Caribbean Moms Network, which is my my organization where I created it to really give back and provide my educational expertise in different areas. I am a medical social worker. I guess I've been a medical social worker for 11 plus years, so that's my expert area. Teen moms, teen pregnancy, parental stuff, maternal mental health, substance, perinatal abuse, all of those things I'm definitely able to provide consultation on, workshops on. So you can definitely reach out to me. And, you know, thank you guys for joining us today.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. So
And
for those of you who are just being introduced to me, my name is Joan Samuels-Dennis, also known as Dr. Joan. And you can find me at drjoan.ca. I'm also in 2 places on Instagram. You can find me at Becoming Beautiful I Am on Instagram. And then you can also find me at World Peace 2021. I am a psychotherapist in Brampton. I'm also the author of the book 490, Forgive and Live Fearlessly. I'm the editor of the book Becoming, The Journey to Love. We recognize all of these hardships as painful experiences that actually help to refine us, filter us so that we become our best selves. And so the work that I do is very much about forgiveness. I do a lot of truth, forgiveness, and reconciliation. Let's call them events or ceremonies. And I help our nation really forgive the atrocities of the past. So if you're interested in doing a truth, forgiveness, or reconciliation event, I am more than happy to come and oblige, and we'll do that absolutely free. So you just reach out. That's part of my not-for-profit work. And then I do private counseling sessions. You can reach out to me right now. Because of COVID, we're doing it via Zoom. And that's about it for us. Thank you for joining me, Kendra. Really, really appreciate the discussion.
no, it was much needed. Thank you